Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. I'm Jimmy Evans. On today's program, I have Billy Crone back with me again to talk about his new book and also his new documentary. And I want to say that we had a fantastic event, our conference just a few weeks ago, the Tipping Point Conference, and that is still available if you want to watch that live stream. It's available through the 21st of October. Now, it expires on the 21st of October, but on the 22nd of October, all of our subscribers get to watch the conference. And so it's going to expire here pretty quick, but you can still watch it if you want to, but it's just going to expire on the 21st. But if you're a subscriber, you'll have full access to the entire conference. Tremendous speakers. It was a tremendous event. And by the way, in 2025, some people got confused at this year's conference and think that we're not going to do live stream next year. We are doing live stream next year, just like we've always done it. And we're also going to start advertising the conference in 2025. It's going to be at Stonebriar Church in Frisco, Texas. And around the 1st of November, those tickets will be available. And so I'll keep you up to date on that. At the end of the show today, in the subscriber-only portion, I'm talking about a bizarre development in the war in the Middle East. The Biden administration is trying to bribe Israel not to strike certain targets in Iran. It's just truly bizarre. I'm also talking about the Biden administration's policies concerning Israel, and could they be tied to these massive hurricanes that are hitting America? And I'm going to be talking about this in the subscriber-only portion, but this book right here, I've told you about this before, William Koenig, Eye to Eye. He gives 126 examples in this book of when American foreign policy was against Israel, especially causing them to divide their land, and natural disasters that happened in America. And the subtitle of his book is Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel. And so right now, some very troubling things are happening concerning the Biden administration's policies concerning the Israel, including a two-state solution and things like that. So I'm going to be talking about that. Could there be a connection between Hurricane Helene and now Hurricane Milton, these massive hurricanes that are hitting America, and what's happening in Israel at the same time? I'm also going to be talking about Emmanuel Macron of France and his efforts to lead a boycott of Israel's war with Hamas, and also demonstrations on the anniversary of October 7th on college campuses across America celebrating Hamas and the slaughtering of innocent Jews. Is truly sickening. I'm going to be talking about that later in the show. But right now, Pastor Billy Crone is joining me again today. He's the senior pastor of Sunrise Bible Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. In addition to being a pastor, he is also a gifted author, conference speaker, and teacher. He's written many books on the end times and produced many documentaries. And today we're talking again about his book, which is also a documentary, Klaus Schwab, Joe Biden, and the Planned Destruction of America. Billy, great to have you today.
Hey, thanks again.
It's always great to have you here. And last week we started talking about your book, Klaus Schwab, Joe Biden, and the Planned Destruction of America. If you didn't see that show, you need to see it. If you're a subscriber or if you're watching this on YouTube, you need to watch that show because it's just extremely enlightening. Now, this is a book, but it's also a DVD.
Yeah, DVD set as well.
And so where do people go to get the book and the DVD?
GetALifeMedia.com. That's our teaching website, and they can get either one or both there.
And what I appreciate about your documentaries and your book is you use their own words.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So you're not making stuff up, try to upset people. You're going to the source.
Yeah.
Of Klaus Schwab and what they have been saying publicly for many, many years.
Yep.
All you're doing is just exposing this agenda, and they have a planned agenda behind the Great Reset, behind the destruction of the American economy, the creation of a new world order. What is the spirit behind Klaus Schwab and his desire to do all this?
Well, just to cut to the chase, it's Lucifer. It really is. That's not hyperbole, and that is literally the bottom line. They worship Lucifer. And Pastor Jimmy, I didn't plan on, when I was doing the research, I was dealing with geopolitical issues, Bible prophecy related issues from Revelation 13, cashless society, the Great Reset. That's what they want to bring. Joe Biden, Harris, they're part of the camp with the World Economic Forum. They're purposely destroying our country, the 10-horn kingdom, Revelation 17. But I stumbled across a thread. I'm going, how could these guys do it? It answered the question for me. How could you look people square in the face, knowing that millions of people are going to get murdered, knowing that you're going to take over countries, knowing that you have hired traitors and put them in places to destroy everybody's way of life, everything to take over the country. How can you do that? And they don't just do it, Pastor Dave. They literally smile as they do it. And I'm going, how do you do that? How do you look somebody square in the face, deliberately look them in the eye and lie and smile as you're murdering people, taking over countries, destroying livelihoods? How do you do it? It's because they're satanic. And I stumbled across this in the research. And first of all, it was the Hitler connection going back to Klaus Schwab. And Hitler, one of the things you need to understand, he not only was an evolutionist, he was an occultist. And we took a deep dive on that. And Hitler got into power by two secret societies, two occult societies. One was called the Thule Society, Thule, Thule Society. The other one was the Golden Dawn Society. And they not only admitted with their occult powers, they got Hitler in, but, quote, they initiated him, this is on tape, they initiated him into the secret doctrine of occult powers. And then that's why he had the powers to speak. And people would say, when you heard him speak, it was like an otherworldly voice, and people were mesmerized. Well, it's because the guy was demon possessed. And so we have that on tape. And so you're like, well, wait a second. So we've already demonstrated that Klaus Schwab has taken basically what Hitler did, the Third Reich, and has changed it into the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset, and he's bringing it to the planet. And because of an obvious Hitler connection, he grew up in Hitler's Germany. But does he have the same spirit? The same demonic, satanic spirit? Yes. The key phrase there is secret doctrine. Secret Doctrine is a book written by Madame Blavatsky. And when you do the research, you can trace it all the way up to Klaus Schwab. He's following the same Luciferian order. Now, let me see if I can describe it and bring it up to him. It's crazy. And then as you go along the way, I'm just like, man, Bible prophecy is popping off the page now. The Secret Society, the Secret Doctrine, Madame Blavatsky, late 1800s, she was a Russian elite. And go figure, these Russian elites, they have nothing better to do, get involved in the occult. And so she did, and she had demons speak to her. Well, the demons spoke to her and said, we have this new wisdom for the planet. And it's called Theosophy. Still in existence today all over the world, Theosophical Society.
And you were a Satanist.
Yes.
And you had spirit guides. You had those same experiences.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thread of what I was involved in, including New Age, not only Satanism, is that Lucifer's a good guy.
Right.
So Theosophy, she writes a book with these demons told her, and of course Theosophy means Theos, God, Sophos, wisdom, God wisdom, the new God wisdom for the planet. And in a nutshell, what these demons told her is that Satan's a good guy, Christians got it wrong, and if we listen to Satan, who's really here to help us as the light bearer, Lucifer, light bearer, then we can bring peace to the planet. And go figure, we need to launch, these demons told her, a Luciferian order that will include a one world government, a one world religion, and there will be a one world leader on the scene who will be Lucifer inspired. But again, they think it's a good thing. Wow. She actually wrote what was called the Lucifer Journal, right? And because they think he's a good guy and we need to listen to him. He's the one who will bring peace to the planet. So she hands the baton off, and she wrote the book Secret Doctrine, right? And that's what Hitler got indoctrinated into. She wrote, she passed the baton to another lady. Her name was Annie Besant, after Blavatsky died. Annie Besant got hooked up with Freemasonry, which is another Luciferian order, but she also, in her communication with the demons in Theosophy, they added another layer, and that was we have too many people on the planet.
Wow.
This is where the depopulation, which is what is part of the Great Reset, too many people, we need to depopulate the planet. Guess who she starts chumming up with? Margaret Sanger, who's the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Oh gosh.
Who began the process to depopulate the people who, in Margaret Sanger's words, misfits, the weeds, you know.
Eugenics. She was into eugenics.
Exactly, which is also part of the Hitler
That's right.
scenario. Then what's crazy is it goes to the next lady, Alice Bailey. And this is where you get your UN connection, right? But they had a term for this. You know, they don't want to come out and say, hey, it's a new Luciferian order, and we're going to create a one world government and one world religion and follow a one world leader who's satanically inspired. That's too obvious. So from the very get-go, how they described this coming order was a couple different phrases. Blavatsky started with the coming New Age. That's how they described it. And that's where the New Age movement gets their term. It's from Blavatsky, the Luciferian order. And in New Age, I can speak for personal experience, they teach that Satan's a good guy, Christians got it all wrong. Then, when you get up to Besant and Alice Bailey, they added another term for it. the age of Aquarius. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
That was that Fifth Dimension song, whatever. But they're describing this Luciferian age that is coming to the planet behind the scenes. Then, when it gets to Alice Bailey, she began to describe it, and here's where the term originally came from, the New World Order. It comes from Theosophy. It comes from these people who believe that that we need a one world government, whatever. A lot of us, even about prophecy, go, oh, that was a term that came up in the 90s, and you started hearing political elite. No. It goes back to them. That's why they were saying that term, because they're linked with Theosophy. Now, they also had a symbol that represented this coming satanic age, this new age, this age of Aquarius, this new world order. And can you guess what that symbol was?
What?
The rainbow.
There you go.
Right? And one of the things that Theosophy, the secret doctrine, this Luciferian order has said for the get-go is that Christians got it wrong, but Christians are also the bad guys who are holding up this Luciferian order. And they need to be gotten rid of. And then what's wild, and this
now
is...
the demons told you that when you were a Satanist, is all these people were going to disappear.
Yes, in fact, this is from Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey, and this is the third in line with the Luciferian order. Alice Bailey said, quote, that these people, the Christians, ultimately, quote, will just disappear. They will elect to leave this dimension as if they just entered into another room. And so they're expecting us to disappear. And they want us to disappear because they admit that we are, watch this, holding things up.
Yeah, well, the Bible calls it we're restraining.
Exactly, it's 2 Thessalonians 2, right? The restraining influence. That's what the word kateko means, to withhold the course thereof. So there's that. But then, anyway, let me get you with the Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey, the UN connection, she started what was called the Lucifer Publishing Company in 1922.
Goodness.
And that's a little too obvious. So then a few years later, she renamed it the Lucis and then Lucis Trust, which is still in existence today. And again, what is it? Lucifer's a good guy, one world government, one world religion, all that stuff. Now, the Bible calls it for what it is from the get-go. It's the Antichrist kingdom. But this is where it's come from. But anyway, you could still look up to this day, Pastor Jimmy, the Lucis Trust, Alice Bailey Theosophy, that they're completely connected with the UN. Completely connected with the UN. And they, in fact, every year the UN sponsors World Invocation Day. And it's people around the world that are encouraging them to invoke this Luciferian order. They don't call it that because that's too obvious. Invoke this new age and things of that nature on the planet. In fact, I filmed in the UN a few years ago for one of our other documentaries, and you don't get it on the outside as much as you do on the inside. When you go on the inside of the UN, total new age, man. And they don't hide what they're doing. All the murals and stuff, one world religion, one world government. And because they're tied with this Luciferian order, this theosophy, right? And then they don't have a prayer room. They have a meditation room. And we were actually able to sneak in there real quick and do some filming because people say, oh, that's just stuff on the internet, that's Photoshop. No, I was there. They have a meditation room, right? To bring peace to the planet. They also have an interesting phrase that they said. They said that they are here to bring, this is crazy, they're here to bring peace and security to the planet. That's Theosophy, and that's also the United Nations. Yeah. Right? In fact, we got it on tape. We secretly recorded one of the ladies. We took the tour to go around to do some filming. And I asked her, I said, so why are you here? Well, we're here to help. No, I said specifically, why does the UN exist? Without missing a beat, she goes, we're here to bring peace and security to the world. Wow. Now, there's two things that they admit that's holding up the peace and security to the planet, this Luciferian order, that they say is going to bring peace and security. You know what it is? Christians, number one, the Judeo-Christian mindset, that's why it's being attacked, and the Jewish people, a conflict in the Middle East.
Wow.
And this is why you will see world leaders still to this day, especially if they're connected with the UN, you will hear them say, peace and security, peace and security.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And specifically in regards to what? Israel, quote, Palestine. Obama said it many times. Biden says it. World leaders over in Europe, Tony Blair, all these guys, they say that we need to bring peace to the Middle East, peace and security, Israel and Palestine living together side by side in peace and security. Peace. They say it all the time at the UN. Now here's what's crazy, Pastor Jimmy. You go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and you know what Paul says there? He says specifically, when you hear people crying out, peace, The word there in some translations is safety, but it's asphalia in the Greek. And you know what it literally means?
What?
Security.
Wow.
So when you hear people say peace and security, bang, sudden destruction comes upon them. Here comes your 7-year tribulation.
Right.
So there's that. But here's my point. So that's all that theosophy,
everything you're
Luciferian
saying,
order.
people need to understand, you document that.
Oh, we not only document, but if you get the DVDs, we got the videos.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the power of the DVDs, not to downplay the book, but people, oh, come on, you must have got that from wackyguy.org. No.
Yeah.
Here's them saying it on tape,
they say it.
and we transcribe it, of course, for the book. But here's the Klaus Schwab connection. Guess who, admittedly, and they still have it on the World Economic Forum's website, was one of Klaus' best buddies?
Who?
A gentleman named Maurice Strong. And if you know anything about Maurice Strong, he was one of the biggest New Agers, theosophy guys in the United Nations. And Klaus admitted that the World Economic Forum would not be what it is today without Maurice Strong. And he recently passed away, Maurice Strong. But again, so you got Lucifer's good guy, one world government, one world religion, follow one world leader, theosophy, Blavatsky, Besant, Bailey, UN, Maurice Strong, Klaus Schwab.
Wow.
It's a direct tie. And I stumbled across it. But once you start going down that rabbit trail, and so I'm going, you can call it Great Reset all you want. It's a Luciferian order. It used to be called New Age. Then it went to the New Age, or Age of Aquarius. Then it's been the New World Order. Klaus just relabeled it, Pastor Jimmy. Now he calls it the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's the same thing. And this is the only book on the planet that tells you, no, you can call it what you want.
That's right.
This is the coming Antichrist kingdom.
Well, and Satan, you know, one of the most chilling scriptures in the New Testament, it was talking about when Jesus was being betrayed. It said Satan entered Judas.
Yeah.
And, you know, demons, they want us as their body. They want to, Jesus said when the demon goes out of a man, he goes into waterless places looking for another house, another place to inhabit. So the Antichrist is Satan in the flesh.
Yeah.
He's Satan possessed. So Satan is creating the world that he's going to rule. Mm-hmm. So when you're saying all these things, it's not just happening. It is being orchestrated by Satan, because Satan's going to make another play at being worshipped, at taking God's place, and all those things like that. So it is Luciferian. And Satan is behind the scenes right now of what's happening, and the Bible is the only book on earth that tells us in advance what's going to happen.
Yeah, and what it really is. Because these guys are masters of labeling, relabeling. Yeah. I mean, you can't show up on the planet and say, hey, I'm Lucifer, and I'm going to take over the planet and install a satanic regime and mass murder most of you guys, and demons are going to flood the planet. Oh, no, people aren't going to resist. Yeah. So you relabel it. It's the secret doctrine. It's the new age. Yeah. It's the age of Aquarius. Didn't you hear that song? Yeah. Right? It's going to be great.
It's the, what do they call that? The Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, really.
They're masters at this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but that's really what's going on. But you mentioned that, go back to, what's the spirit behind? After this research, I go, well, wait a second. So Klaus Schwab, I know the spirit now behind what he's doing. He's relabeled it as the Great Reset. It's the Luciferian order, the Antichrist kingdom. But wait a second, he's got people all over the world, including Biden and Harris in office. So or do they have a spiritual connection as well? Boy, did they ever. And it's not good. And it's definitely not the Spirit of God. Right. And I've said this phrase after I did the research. There's one thing that I think Trump forgot to mention when he says we need to drain the swamp. He forgot one word. It's the word occult. Because we need to drain the occult swamp. Yeah. And I'm telling you, we know this as Christians. Not all of our battles are against flesh and blood. Right. Some they're spiritual. Ephesians 6, we know that. And we know that we're in a spiritual battle. Sometimes these people even play on that and say, we're in the battle for the soul of America. Boy, are we ever,
no, we are.
Pastor Jimmy. Because when you begin to do the research, there is a spirit in the White House, and it is not of God. But what the bombshell for me in doing the research with that, first of all, go figure that they work with Klaus Schwab. Right. Because they're working for the same entity, Satan. But another thing I stumbled across, and so I began to do the research. Well, when did this happen? When did the demonic spirits begin to go into the White House? It started in the Pierce, President Pierce. And this was when spiritualism, which is basically, you see the black and white photos of people doing the table rapping and speaking, the Ouija boards and all that stuff. That was a craze that spread from Europe over to America. Well, Jane Pierce, President Pierce's wife, they lost their son. So she called in the 3 biggest occultists in America at that time, called the Fox Sisters. And they began to perform seances in the White House to contact her dead son. This is in secular print. What I learned as I continue to go forward, it's never left the White House. It moved on there from Abraham Lincoln. They too lost a son. Yes. And Mary Todd Lincoln, in her grief, turned to the spiritualists and began to do, believe it or not, seances in the White House. And just to fast forward, I began to see it never left. In fact, you can go in secular print today. Many people, even other countries' emissaries who've stayed in the White House, some of them have left rooms screaming in terror because of the apparitions and things that will show. And then, just to be fair with both sides of the camp, this explains why our government, Pastor Jimmy, not just now, but has been messed up for a long time. Yeah. And you can go back even in the Reagan days and demonstrate, which we do. Nancy Reagan was heavy into astrology.
Yes, she was.
And Reagan even bowed a knee to her astrology ways and gave deference to her, to like, should he run for election again? Should I make this trip? And things of that nature. Astrology was behind that. Then, of course, who do you have next? You got George Bush Sr., and then I'll fast forward to Jr. Both of those guys, believe it or not, are part of Skull and Bones Society.
Yes, they are.
Which is totally, totally demonic. And then you get the Clinton that was in there. I've got on tape, transcribed for the book. Bill Clinton admitted in the 70s his first introduction into a spiritual awakening was voodoo. He and Hillary are down in Haiti, and they were a part of a voodoo ceremony where this lady gets demon possessed and things of that nature, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever. And he basically said that after that spiritual adventure, that he determined that the spirits were telling him he's going to run for office.
Wow.
This is voodoo. I got it on tape. I don't know if the guy's still alive, because usually those people disappear with the Clintons, that Hillary, and this is back in the Arkansas days, that one of his jobs was to keep from the public, he was hired by Bill to do this, that Hillary on weekends was a part of a witch coven.
Wow.
And which of course we're going, well, that makes sense, right? Right. But and then fast forward, so then you got the Obamas, and there's, just to cut to the chase, satanic overtones that we bring out with that. Michelle, his wife, she was involved in voodoo. In fact, this is still in print. She brought voodoo into the White House with her mom, Mary Ann, because her husband was passing away. So she used voodoo rituals more than once in the White House to things of that nature. Biden, if we forget about Biden, Harris, who was applauding and working their tails off, performing occult rituals for him and Harris to win? Witches and Satanists. It's like everybody's forgotten this. It's like, don't you remember? This was crazy. Wow. They were gunning for him. And when you got witches and Satanists on your side saying, hey, that's not a good sign, right? And there's other occult things that we bring out with that as well. In fact, when Biden got into the White House, he hires Susan Rice, who used to work for Obama. And you know what the first thing she did?
What?
She brought in what was called a smudging ceremony. Now, if you know anything about smudging, that's witchcraft.
Wow. And
it's a cleansing ritual from witchcraft, Pastor Jimmy, to, quote, cleanse the White House from Trump energy.
There you go.
Right? And so you go down this route, and it's like, we talk about, not all of our battles against flesh and blood, and this seems to be like a spiritual attack, or, the spirit of America is under attack, and they're specifically attacking the it's true. It's a Luciferian order. And this is why things are so messed up in our country. And this is why it's so important in the days that we live in. We need to wake up as Christians and realize that our country has been infiltrated and invaded by people who worship demons, who worship Satan. They're Satan worshipers, and they're in high places, right? And so, and when you get that, to me, it's the wake up moment. It's like, oh, it makes so sense why things are getting so, not just crazy, they're getting demonic.
Demonic.
Right? And it's from top down. And to me, I'm the ultimate optimist. And so what do? Hide out and freak out even more? No. We make a difference as Christians.
Right.
And we need to pray. We need to pray that God would bring revival, and that God's Spirit would begin to move back across our nation and bring our nation back to the Judeo-Christian ethic and the roots, that we would get back to worshiping not Satan or Lucifer, but Jesus Christ.
That's right.
But here's the point. What I've noticed is that Christians, we've been praying revival backwards. When we even pray, if churches even pray for revival anymore, their attitude is like, God, go get them. No, the Bible says, if my people, God's people, what do? Not pray. We skip over that first one. It's humble yourself. Been humbled yet? You humble yourself, then you pray, seek God's face, not just one for a weekend, seek His face, and then turn from your own wicked ways. That's when revival begins to break out. Right. So if there's ever going to be a genuine revival before the 7-year tribulation breaks out and we're out here at the rapture, the only way it's going to happen, Pastor Jimmy, is if we, the church, wake up.
That's right.
And if we get our hearts right with God, then there's a chance. And until that happens, it's never going to happen.
Revival is for the church. Awakening is for the nation.
Yeah.
You can't revive something unless it's once alive.
Right.
And so you revive the church. I totally agree with what you're saying. And part of the problem is there's so much of the church today that, Jesus told the parable of the 10 virgins. Matthew 24 was all about the end times. They asked him, his disciples asked him, what will be the signs of the end? So Matthew 24, he gives the signs. Then in Matthew 25, he tells 2 parables and a true story about judgment. And the first parable was of the 10 virgins, which represents the church. And the bridegroom that returns to marry the brides, and so, which represents Jesus' return. And 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. And he said to the 5 foolish, I don't know you. Okay. Well, Jesus gave a percentage, and that is half the church when he returns will be false.
Yeah.
And that's what you see today. You see the denomination, like the Methodist denomination is an example of this in this past year. Thousands of congregations left the Methodist denomination because of how liberal they've become.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of them for doing that. The same happened to Presbyterian,
right.
Baptist, right down the line. But then half of them, the half that were liberal, have become more liberal because they got these people out.
Right.
And they had a convention right afterwards, and they started voting all this crazy stuff in. And many of those churches have rainbow flags flying out in front of their church and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's the days that we live in are so incredibly dangerous. But the answer is for the church. If my people who are called by my name, we're the answer.
Right.
And so this is a political season. We have an election that's coming up here in a few weeks. And the number one thing, when Billy and I are talking, if it sounds like we're being partisan or whatever, we're not being partisan. Billy is just exposing what's happening. Billy documents everything. He's a researcher. And his documentary, you can see it. You can hear the people themselves saying it, but it's documented. And so the expose that you've done on Klaus Schwab in the planned destruction of America and all that is brilliant, Billy. And I do hope people will go. Now tell them again to your website.
It's getalifemedia.com. That's the teaching website. They get the book and the DVDs there.
And you have many books, you have many DVDs, you have all kinds of materials there. So go there and get the book, get the DVDs. This would be a great book and DVDs to use in a small group or in a church Bible study or something, just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But the battle for America is the battle for the soul of America.
Right.
And it's not just a political thing, because politics alone are not going to save anything.
Right.
They're important, but pray about the elections. Register to vote, go out and vote. But more than anything, use your life, just like Billy said, to make a difference for Jesus Christ.
Well, and that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's how we end the study. It's really on a high note. It's action, because it's like, wow, this is crazy. What do I do? Yeah. Well, it's not a time to go AWOL or hide out in the hills or freak out and get afraid. Fear does not come from God. It's time to be faithful and get back to who we are as Christians, which is engaging our culture. Christians disengage from the culture, dare I say, I'll say it, not voting, whatever. Right. That is not biblical, folks. Right. The Bible calls us not just the bride of Christ and children of God. Keep reading. The Bible says we're the salt of the earth. We are the light unto the world. And 2 Thessalonians 2, specifically as we await the rapture, here's your action point, the restraining influence. Right. And how can you be the salt? How can you be the light? Salt preserves. Light beats back darkness. Right. How can you resist the tyranny, the oppression, the rise of the Antichrist king that we see? How can you do that if you're hiding out? Right. Or if you're keeping your mouth shut? Right. Or if you're in a state of fear? That does not come from God. And so the action point is, Christian, it is a time to live up to who we are in Christ.
That's right. Get
back to being the salt, the light, and the last days resistance, and finish strong.
Absolutely. Billy is the senior pastor of Sunrise Bible Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. And what is the website of your church?
SunriseLV.com. SunriseLV is in Las Vegas.com.
Wonderful. Billy, thank you for joining me
again
today. It's always great, and I look forward to the next bombshell that you drop and, expose. We're going to go into the subscriber only portion of the show now. And so if you're not a subscriber to endtimes.com, go there right now, $7 a month, and become a subscriber. You get the entire Tipping Point show without commercials. You also get the subscriber only portion where I talk about, what's in the news right now, the commentary section. You get Mark Hitchcock's podcast comes out, Brian Schrager. We have articles, breaking news that comes out all week long. I want you to be a subscriber. $7 a month. I'm saying this, help support endtimes.com and what we're doing. What we're doing is very important. In fact, other than the gospel, I believe that what we're doing is the most important message in the world right now, is helping people understand end time prophecy and that Jesus is coming, and help people not be anxious but actually be comforted, because when you understand end time prophecy properly, it comforts you. But help support, not just become a subscriber, help support. And some of you, even if you don't want to become a subscriber, you can go to endtimes.com and you can give a financial gift to help support what we're doing. And we're expanding this ministry like never before. We need your help to hire people, to do things, to produce different programming, and hire new people to be contributors on the show. And so endtimes.com, you can become a subscriber, or you